And here we are for another Friday Night Live. So, I actually uploaded a video for the first time since June. Can you believe it? And it was about the Ubuntu Mate 17.10 alpha release, alpha 2 release, and has a lot of nice features in you might want to check out. But we also recorded Destination Linux today, and that was a lot of fun. Ryan recorded it with me, and we talked about a lot of different things, but we talked about Mozilla's new file sharing feature. And I don't know what everybody thinks of it, but I don't know. At first I thought I would use this pretty often, and then I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I don't know how often I would use this. I'm sure it'll come in handy at some point. I'm sure somebody will. Good evening, Chip. How are you, man? I'm sure somebody will. I'll have to send the file to somebody and it'll actually work good. So I'm sure I'll use it at some point. I just don't know if I'm going to use it as much as I thought I would in the beginning. So what's going on today, Chip? I'm waiting for the rest of you guys. So not only did they release the, and you have to actually install an add-on for this to work. So you have to do the Firefox Test Pilot add-on, and then you can go to send.firefox.com and drag and drop your file, and it will generate a link for you, and you can share it with everybody or certain people. I guess you can only share it with one, because once it gets downloaded, it gets deleted from the server. So, well, Chip, they have done so much work in 17.10 that it pretty much speaks for itself, man. They have, I guess they've really tried to capture the Unity audience, and I don't know. I think they're actually going to do it. Because I think the big takeaway from that is, like I said, you got them trying to woo the Unity users over, and they can do it without alienating the people that love the desktop the way it is. So it's like one click here, one click there, and you can either use Unity or you can use what you've been using. So I think it's like the best of both worlds. I think they're in a perfect position to gain a lot of users. And the work that they put into it, it shows. Well, it's the first. I had so much trouble with that video, man. I think it took. I think it's like an 8-minute video. I think it took 4 hours to do. I had so much trouble with it. I had it in Kdenlive, and I was editing it, and I was adding the intro and the outro, and I had all the, yes, toss. I did. I said, no, I didn't say aliens. I had everything set for this. Holy mackerel, doctor. What are you doing up at this time? So I had all of everything set and just about to get ready to render this video, and the whole Kdenlive crashes, and I lost everything that I had edited up to, like, I think a certain point. I think 3 minutes into the video, that was it. I was so frustrated, but I figured that I hadn't made a video in such a long time. How you doing, Heather? I had not made a video in such a long time that I figured I better run with it and get it done, and well, there you have it. Then it went up. So I redid all of the editing, and like I said, it took me a total of like 4 hours to do an 8-minute video. Sad, but hey, what are you gonna do? So Not only did Firefox come out with the send feature, but they also came out with the voice search, which I probably am not going to use either. So I don't know. I'm not a big voice search person. At least I haven't been up to this point. So what it does is it adds, once you install the plugin, it adds a little voice microphone icon to like DuckDuck or Yahoo, and you can use voice search from then on. But
introducing.
Yeah, it was great, dude. It was awesome. It really wasn't awesome, but we made it, and it's done, and that's all that matters. And me and Das just got done streaming some Rocket League, and it was awesome fun. Probably not fun to watch, but it was really fun. All right, so on our list of also things that we've talked about, we talked about Ubuntu 17.10. We'll have maybe I can get connected with the when I do live news night. Just well, we did the news and nonsense yesterday, so yeah. Well, we talked about Ubuntu 17.10, so they're going to have a dock in 17.10, but it's not going to be dash to dock. So it's going to be a hybrid, I guess, of it, and it's going to be an extension, and you're still going to be able to supposedly install the dash to dock right alongside it without it causing any issues, but they don't want to enable all of the features. There are a lot of settings in 2 nights a week. I can barely do what I'm doing. There's an awful lot of settings in dash to dock. So what you have is you have an add-on or an extension that, may be overwhelming to certain people. So they're going to basically have a stripped down version of a dock. So that's what they're going to go with. Now, I guess I don't forget what the survey results were, but like 80% of the survey wanted some type of dash to dock there. So I don't know. That's what I use when I'm using Gnome. So hey, that's the way they're going to do it. Hey, Colin, what's going on? Roger, I'm waiting for you. Also, they have decided that they're going to move the window buttons over to the right. So, everybody has their preference on whether they want to have the close minimize buttons on the left or right. I prefer them on the left, but they decided by default they're going to put them over on the right, which is opposite of what Gnome normally has. And it was opposite of what Unity had, so I'm not exactly sure where that came from or who decided or why they decided to do that, but they did decide to put the buttons on the right. Doesn't sound like a big deal, and in the grand scheme of things it ain't, because you can switch it any way you want, but I think it'll be a big deal for certain people. Right? Yeah, we were tearing them up, weren't we? Oh my gosh. Also, the Ubuntu 16.04.3 LTS released. So that comes with an updated kernel 4.10. Comes with a 17.0 Mesa version of it. And it comes with enhancements for newer GPUs. So it will have support for the Radeon or the AMD Vega cards, which is a good thing, but it will, lose some support for the older cards. And I know DOS doesn't mind that at all. You'll have to read it. You'll have to listen to it on the podcast. But there's a lot of good gaming news right now. So there's a new game called Downward, and this is a parkour game, and it's a puzzle action, not action, puzzle adventure game. So if it's sort of like Mirror's Edge, if you've ever played that. That's a Windows game. Um, so it is you're basically running on walls or jumping over to platforms and whatnot. So it looks like a really fun game. It looks like the graphics on it are pretty nice. The world looks awesome. So we'll have to wait and see, but it recently left early access, and now the Linux version is up to date, so you can now get it on Linux. And I gotta actually check my Steam account and see. Colin?
Rocco, how you going?
What's going on, man?
Oh, I just went for a walk and just thought I'd have a bite. I didn't expect you to start this early, so...
Well, you know what? I don't know how long it's going to be for the stream, so I figured I'd start it now and get some of it in and let people
sure
talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So
what we're talking about?
Well, I was talking about different things like Ubuntu 17.10 Alpha. And,
oh, yeah, I just downloaded that.
What'd you think?
I haven't tried it yet. I downloaded it this morning.
Oh, you haven't tried it yet?
No, but I watched your video, and yeah, I'll tell you what, they're looking good, Ubuntu Mate. They've covered all angles, I reckon. They've covered every angle on the desktop that people would like, every option, and you got variety as well. Did you try saving more than one type of desktop? Can you do that, or you can only save one?
That is one thing I didn't try, Colin. I should have tried it. You would think I would have, but I was pressed for time for trying everything and getting the video recorded, so I didn't really do a real in-depth look at it. So because I still have to report the bug of my keyboard. Did you have the same trouble with the HUD where it wouldn't open up?
No, I've got to actually try it yet. I haven't even burnt the ISO to a USB yet.
Oh, that's right. I'm not even thinking.
I'll give it a go.
Not even thinking.
Give it a go tonight or today sometime.
But I would hit the super key and alt, and I'm going to say once out of every 5 times the HUD would actually show up. Other than that, it was just nothing. So like I said, I don't know if it was my keyboard, because this is a gaming keyboard. I don't know if it's like not supported with it, or if it's just the alpha, part of it that it's not working right. But
probably just alpha, Rocco, I would say. You do get those little niggly issues in an alpha. So,
well, that's why I said I didn't have a whole lot of time, because I wanted to report that as well, so they could look at that. But yeah, it was pretty nice, man. For an alpha release, that was working pretty well, man. Didn't crash on me. All like the global menu seemed to work perfect, dude. Way better than Gnome and KDE, the way they have the global menu set up. So
excellent. Well, I reported a bug this morning on Revenge OS because I was doing I'm making a video how to install it, so I just thought I'd do a little project there, and when you cancel out the install, it actually continues.
Yes.
So this happened to me the first time, but I didn't think much of it. But yesterday, and I've got some disks here, and I actually installed to the NUC that I've got a dock connected via USB 3. So I just chuck internal hard drives into the dock and install to there. So whether I wipe them out or not, it doesn't matter. But this thing, I got right to the end and cancelled, and it continued to format. So that to me is a bit of a concern for somebody who's chosen the wrong disk. So I thought that was a worthwhile bug to report this morning. So,
yeah, I ran into the same issue, and if I remember correctly, I remember watching a video from Dave over at Linux and Other Stuff, and he had the same issue where he would close it out. And this was and I think this one's called the Nemesis installer.
Yes, it's the Nemesis. Yeah.
But that one was the previous one, and it was still having the same issue. So I'm not exactly sure.
Well, this is the latest one, and I reported the Wayland issue as well, where you couldn't log into the X, but Jody has said he's sorted that out. It's going to be in the next ISO, so I'm not sure if he's working on another ISO at the moment, because I've got the latest one. It's the 2017.07, I think it is. So that's still happening. So I thought it was a worthwhile bug report, to be honest, because somebody could probably trash their hard drive without knowing if they decide to cancel.
Right.
Yeah, you're better off to just shut down without going any further than cancel, you know.
Well, the one other problem that I had with the Nemesis installer was I have my, I guess it's SDE drive with 4 partitions, and I installed the XFCE version on the 3rd partition. So obviously, as it being SDE, it's down the list pretty far. So when I went to install the Gnome version, I was going to install it on partition 4 of SDE. And, you know, you've seen the Nemesis installer where it has them listed, and then it has the boxes of where you can put the root. Well, everything up to SDE3 was lit up, and then everything below SDE3, including my SDE4, was like not highlighted. So you couldn't touch it. You couldn't install it to it. So I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but I never did get the Gnome version installed because of that.
Right. I wonder if it can't read any further than that, or maybe it's just a bug. Maybe not a bug in the installer. Maybe it's just a limitation. Maybe, I don't know.
It may be.
Yeah. But actually, the desktop, I'm running KDE at the moment. The Revenge one.
What do you think of it?
I installed. Yeah, it's not bad. I just had to get used to, because I was in the video I show you how to do the links to your documents folder on a different data partition, and I had to work out how to do links in Dolphin, because it's a little bit different to the others. The others, you go to the data partition, create a link. On the Dolphin one, you actually create the link from the home part, from the actual partition of the root drive in that home area. So you do it the opposite way. So I had to work that, because I'm not used to Dolphin. I don't run Dolphin very often.
Well, I love Dolphin, man. I think it's like the best file manager ever.
Yeah. It's got a lot of options. It has, yeah, I must say. I'm so used to GNOME desktop. I think when I came into Linux, it was pretty much GNOME. And I think I think what you start with Linux, you very much stay on that same track very much, because, and just like a text, I was looking for a text editor, Kate. I sort of seen in videos, but when you're running it, you can't remember. You sort of searching for a G editor or something like that. You just get so used to the applications you use, you just it becomes unfamiliar in other distros.
Yep. Yeah, I ran KDE for the longest time, dude. 3.5, I think it was when I started, and it was really buggy back then, but it was so awesome. I mean, it had so many options and everything. And then when it went to 4, a lot of it was lost, and then it started to build back up. And then when it went to 5, all of the options and everything were taken out, and now it has to be built back up. So it's constantly evolving and changing. But yeah, you usually stick with what you started out with. Although I am running GNOME right now still. Yeah,
that's right. I like trying everything. That's the thing about Linux. You can just try whatever you like, and just trying different things. To me, I'm not one of those people who just get bogged down with the same thing. I like to vary the things that I try, because you never know, you might just find something that takes your fancy, and you might say, yep, I like this. So it's always worth trying different things. Although I am accustomed to the Cinnamon desktop. I like Cinnamon desktop.
Now, do you use the Cinnamon menu?
No, I used to for the longest time when going back, and I started using Cinnamon when the Unity came out and its lack of features and all that. Not that I got anything against Unity, never had, just the lack of features. So then I ended up going to Linux Mint and running Cinnamon for a while, and I don't mind their main menu, but the configurable menu was the best.
Yeah, it
until
was really
until
good.
yeah, until
was
it broke
really
in
good.
17.1 or 2. It broke around about there, and that was a bit disappointing. But it is
Yeah.
back. I think it still works
Well, it does
now.
work. Although
Yeah.
when I did enable it the last time, I was having issues of things crashing and
Right.
the menu
Okay.
itself crashing and stuff. So I usually when I'm running Cinnamon use that SynXP Stark menu. That's really
Yeah,
good.
that's a good one. Yeah, that's close to Windows 7. That one, I think, isn't it? That's the one that looks very similar to Windows 7, I believe. That menu.
Well, I was going to install something else on this. I was going to switch, but time is limited, and it's like
You're a
between.
busy man.
Well, I mean, there's so much going on, dude, and work and everything else, and
Yeah,
I have limited time, and I don't want to like do it on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night and then screw up,
yeah,
Destination Linux recording or something like that. So it's like,
absolutely.
I mean, I really wish I could just switch to something else because I've been using Gnome and it's okay, but I would love to try Budgie again. And I wouldn't even mind trying KDE again if it wasn't going to crash. But yeah, I just don't have time to make the switch and deal with any issues that go along with it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I know once you get established, it's very hard to change, I must say, especially when you've got everything. Although now that I've sorted out a different data partition, I just make links. That to me has become the easiest way of changing desktops. So you can be pretty much up and running in no time with everything there. As long as you don't install to your data partition, you're pretty much right. You just install to root and done. And you're up and running, create your links, and it's as though you've never changed anything. How are you, Toss?
Yo.
I only got halfway through your news and nonsense, I think, this morning, and I haven't watched the rest of it, but I don't know if anything else came. I've seen Matthew Moore share something on Google Plus yesterday, and it was to do with employing someone at NASA to keep us safe from the aliens. Did any of you see that?
We covered it on the news and nonsense.
You covered it? Okay. I'm going to have to watch the rest of it then.
Yep, we covered it on the news and nonsense. It was funny. We were
I'm gonna have
talking
to watch the rest.
like I think the pay was $187,000 or something like that. Like, don't you think it should be more? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like this guy's going to protect us from everything outside of the Earth. Don't you think this is worth a little bit more than 187,000?
I think he can be trusted as long as he's running Linux, maybe.
Yeah. Honed Rocket League skills, huh, Todd? Well, me and Das were playing earlier, and we didn't really hone our skills any, but we had fun.
You put a video up this morning, did you? You and Dust, did you? You and Ryan? Did you upload it?
Just like an hour ago, we were streaming live
right.
the Rocket League. So.
Oh, okay. Did your voices come out okay? Because on the last one I watched, I couldn't hear you, or I could hear Ryan clear as a bell, but there was you and I think Michael was there. I couldn't hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I know that I have issues with my PC streaming and running a game at the same time. So I'm not exactly sure what the deal is with it, but I know that I got to turn the bitrate up in order for it to not be like complete Minecraft blocks size, So I don't know exactly what's wrong with the... I may just not have a powerful enough machine to stream and play a game at the same time, so...
Right. So what's happening, Toss? Is Toss got his mic on? Or? No, you got no volume there, Toss. Can't hear you. Oh, that's why we've been ignoring him all this time, is it?
we haven't been ignoring you, dude. We just don't hear you.
No.
Okay.
Can you hear him, Rocco? Can you? Or?
I can't hear him, no.
You can't hear him.
He's a mute. Yeah, you can hear me. I know you can. But anyway, yeah, we had a good time today. Like I said, we recorded Destination Linux, and then we played some Rocket League, and it was a pretty good time.
No, that's good.
So did you see
So
this article, Colin, about the CIA and this malware that can infiltrate Linux systems?
I seen something. I don't know where I seen it. I didn't read it actually. I only seen it in passing, but I didn't go right into it.
There he is.
Hello, Toss.
Oh, now it's working.
And now it's working.
It's Ubuntu, man. Their audio mixer system is horrible compared to Mate. It's not as user friendly. That's about the only thing I don't like about this. It's not quite as user friendly or as intuitive as the drop down, sound mixer menu in Mate or even
I've been complaining about that in KDE for the longest time.
Yeah, it's just, dude. I mean, any Ubuntu developers, simplify.
Well,
it shouldn't be this complicated.
They actually made it easier in the newest Plasma, but you have to be on like 5.10, and I don't think Ubuntu's on 5.10 yet.
I have 5.10. It's still not.
Do you?
Yeah. I have KDE Neon, which updates the latest.
Oh, okay. So you got Neon. All right.
Yeah. I got the developer version, which is always, it's like kind of like a semi-rolling, I guess, really. Yeah, well, it's not on my test laptop. That's why the lighting's off. So
yeah,
I figure if I screw this one up with the install, I don't care. So but
so
you would think by now they would solve the audio. And things are saying, oh, I can see though.
You're sounding a bit robotic, Toss.
Anyway. I'm just watching TV. I'm back here, just back here, and a little light over there. But I know you guys can see me, so.
That's right.
I just had a nice glass of wine. Cheers.
Cheers. So, Colin, this new malware is called Eris, and it can infiltrate anything from Debian to Red Hat to Solaris, FreeBSD, everything pretty much. Mostly server stuff, but we are a little bit safer on Linux, but I don't know sometimes.
Well, do you have to? Is it one of those bugs where you have to have a text editor running in the background with the dialog box open and all these different things where you can get in? Or because a lot of the malwares and stuff that happen, they always say it sounds bad, but it's never as bad. If you watch Quids Up, he'll always explain that there's got to be so many. You've got to have. It's a situation where it's almost impossible for anyone to actually get in unless you've got all these things open and vulnerable. So a lot of the Linux ones always seem to be that way.
Well, this just isn't like any small malware. This is a tool built by the CIA for collecting data. So I don't think the average desktop user has anything to worry about. But I was joking with Ryan on Destination Linux that it's not like we shouldn't look at it like the CIA is sitting back there and they can get the bad guys as long as they're on Windows, but if the bad guys switch to Linux, they're in they're safe. They have to have some type of tools in order to be everywhere and anywhere. So it's not like there's no tools out there. We just don't know about them all.
Right. Exactly. Believe me, if they want you, they'll find you.
Yeah.
Ski, what's going on?
Absolutely, Toss. I agree with that, Toss. They'll find you.
If you're doing like nefarious stuff, the so-called dark web, nasty stuff. I'm not saying it's all bad, but if you're doing really, unfriendly stuff, they'll find you in anything that you're using, because that's what they do. That's their specialty.
Is there Is there a good reason to be on the, like the dark web and that stuff? Is there a good reason for that stuff out there, or
The only thing I could think of is maybe a little bit more privacy. Other than that, Rocco, I can't think of anything else because they call it dark for a reason.
I know there's not good stuff on it. I know that, but I'm just looking for a reason for why it would be there in the first place. I mean, I know it's there because it's there, but
yeah, to be more anonymous, a little more privacy. That's the only, and even that's a stretch. But that's the only reason I could think of, where you're so paranoid that you want to, quote, do your business on the dark web. But, if you're doing legal stuff, why do you have to be on the dark web? That's just my personal opinion. I don't really know. I can't prove it either way.
I agree with that anyway. I mean, look, like you say, Toss, if you want privacy, don't go on the web, pretty much. And do we have to say that really at the end of the day, if they are chasing the bad guys, is it keeping us safe anyway? And should they have the right to be able to infiltrate because they're looking for the bad guys? It's a 6 of one, half a dozen the other, isn't it?
It is a brave new world, man. I mean, it's that simple. But once again, I had a response to or a comment saying it was one of my videos on privacy, and he said, he was very nice, but he said, dude, you're using Linux. Its very nature with the file system, requires permission, so you're going to be secure and safe. And well, we're talking two different things. If your system is secure, that's great. But once you get on the web, privacy and security are not necessarily the same once you get on the web. Right? Like, I think my Windows 10 is quite secure because I keep it that way. But once you get on the web, right?
Yeah. With any distro, isn't it?
It's not the same.
I don't know if Windows 10 is secure, even if you're not on the web, but at least it's only Microsoft getting the info.
That's right.
But when I mean secure is in stasis, not getting on the web.
Right. Yeah. I know what you mean. I just figured I'd throw that in there.
That's fine.
I think security comes down to the user. I mean, you've got to have a good password. And when you do your banking, for me, especially, I get paranoid, but I mean, when I log into that net bank, I'll either use a live USB, or I do it on my system if I couldn't be bothered with that. But I use a good password, strong password. Then when I log out, I close the browser and then I reopen, because I think that just cuts any ties. If you're getting keylogged, or I think it's just common sense, isn't it? Does it come down to common sense? I don't know.
Well, there was always that discussion, even way back with Windows days, of, are you safe with, security tools only, or are you safe with just using common sense and you don't have to use security tools like antivirus and firewall and all this other stuff? And it basically comes down to the best tool is you being safe and using common sense, not clicking on links in emails, not going to ridiculous websites. Now, I know there's drive-by malware on websites that are normal websites that you can go on. And you can go out your door and get hit by a car. But the point is, for the most part, as long as you drive safe, you will, obviously get to where you're going without getting hurt. So it's the same principle with computing, and it's the same principle on Linux too. Whether you're on Windows or Linux, it's the same principle. You gotta, you can't be just installing any PPA that's out there. You can't just be installing any deb file that's out there either, or even going to the Arch user repository. You can't just install anything. You more or less have to research it and see if this is any good, if how long it's been around, is it from a reputable source, that kind of thing. Just common sense stuff. And I think then when you use that, you'll be safe.
I better revisit what I'm installing then, Rocco.
Well, okay. And, that goes back to a question, like what would happen if there was a distro out there that, distro hoppers like us would install, that people put a spin on it and added their own collection tools into it or malware into it. Unless you're a super geek, you're not going to know that that stuff is there. I wouldn't know that that stuff is there. So it's always a risk.
Well, I think your reasons for running particular operating systems, for me, I run Windows for the longest time, and I never had the best, strongest computer. And when I was running XP, the more updates you got, the slower it got, the longer it took to start up. It was just terribly frustrating. And when I tried Linux for the first time and seeing how quick it started up, how quickly it run, right? And they're the reasons why I run Linux. I don't mind Windows, and I think you can go on Windows. If you're on Linux or Windows, once you hit that browser, click on that browser, whether it be Firefox, Google, Vivaldi, anything, you're on the web. I think it's the same. I think they are all equal, all operating systems, once you are on the web on any browser. Wouldn't you think?
Well, I think it depends on what you're talking about. You know, if you're talking about security as far as malware, or if you're talking about privacy, because they're two different scenarios. It's like the privacy end of it. You know, you can install add-ons, and I was just having a conversation with my dad today about Firefox and the add-ons, and he doesn't want to upgrade Firefox because he doesn't want to lose his legacy add-ons. And 57's coming out, and they're going to be lost. So it's like he enjoys the privacy end of it. Now he realizes that, you know, not everything is 100% private. It's just the way it is. If you're like you said, you're going out on the web, you're out there. It's just the way it is. But he wants to make it as hard as possible for somebody to get his info. He wants it to be as anonymous as it can be. So is a VPN 100% safe? No. Is your add-ons 100% safe? No. But if he can implement this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that, and a little bit of that, to keep it just as hard as it can be, you know, that's what you want to do.
Well, when it comes to security, how do people get your passwords? They keylog you, don't they? Isn't that how they do it? I mean, if they really wanted to, or if you've got a weak password, that's what they do, isn't it?
Well, it depends. I mean, you could, if you store your passwords in, say, Firefox, they're stored in a plain text file. Then that's why you don't use that. But, you know, it depends if there's like I use NPass for a password manager. Well, it has a browser extension in order to plug it in. So if there's some type of, you know, hole, leak, bug, whatever in NPass where they can do a man-in-the-middle attack, yeah, they can probably get your password. And then you got to look at, you know, NPass themselves. You know, you have to trust somebody at some point with some information. So I am basically trusting that NPass is not collecting my passwords or anything like that, even though I have them stored locally and everything. But you never know what this is. So there's many ways to get passwords, but keylogging is definitely one of them.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I don't use any KeyPass or anything. I've got places where I keep my passwords with not on my local computer, that's for sure. And
so you type them in every time?
I type them in every time, and I don't get the computer to remember any of my passwords.
Wow.
Never.
That's
safe.
I
have way too many. That is safe, but I have way too many passwords to do that.
Yeah, that would drive me nuts. I got it written down in the book, but I have you know, Firefox save them and Chrome save them, but I don't use a master you know, password or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah. You know, it's funny. I'm watching you guys, and I'm watching Home Shopping Channel, Ace Electronics.
Which is better?
Well, I'm sorry, Rocco, but she's cuter than you are. Sorry.
Well, we're forgetting the chat here now. So, Das said that the dark web is good for revolutions and planning events that you don't want people to monitor or people to disrupt.
Okay.
And then I won't mention Shane's comment because he's talking about purchasing stuff. And
want to buy some stuff, man?
Yeah, some stuff. Anyway, Das also said that some countries are starting to block VPNs, so that's also why the dark web is a little useful.
Okay. So now we're talking privacy again, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
You know, I'm not sure
that's what we talk about here. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was going to jump in that fast. I didn't get that muted.
Hey, Joey, Baba.
It's all good. So
Sorry.
I'm not convinced about these VPNs. I never use a VPN. All they do is stop people from tracking you, no doubt. Because I did a little experiment at work the other day. I showed my boss that on the work computer, I rarely use Google and all that. I just use it for work and stuff. But I went to my favorite computer shop and I clicked on a hard drive and I said to him, you watch, I'll go to distro watch, which I've never been before on this computer. I went to distro watch and bang, straight away, up come an advertisement for that exact hard drive that I was looking at. So that just shows me how much they're following you on the internet. And those advertisements will come up no matter where you go. They'll just keep shoving them in your face.
Yep.
So that's where a VPN probably comes in handy. But if that's the worst case scenario, I don't want to buy it. I'm not going to click on it, so I don't really care. But is it?
It's also like the VPN and the privacy add-ons where like your user switcher, so that you don't tell it what browser you're using or what information or your location of where you're coming from, because when you go to Amazon or other sites, they're seeing where you came from, and they're also being able to read your browser history and the text files and the all the web links and the cookies and everything else. So it's like they have all that info, and then they start popping up these ads like they know where you were 2 minutes ago. So yeah, you're right.
It happens on Microsoft. It happens on Linux. So I mean, that's the only advantage of a VPN. But I'm not paying anyone for a VPN just to not see advertisements. I don't see the point in paying for a VPN to stop advertising. That's just a waste of money, I think.
Well, the VPN is something, not only is it for going out, but it's also to anonymize, that kind of thing.
I wonder how virtual is the VPN in Opera. I wonder how virtual is that one. Yeah.
Well, the VPN is good to hide what you're doing, and not that you need to hide it, but to keep from your ISP what you're doing as well, where you're going, what list. So I got Comcast, and I may not want Comcast to see every place I go.
I don't use a VPN except for the one in Opera. Yeah.
So I use private internet access, and everything's encrypted before it goes out. So it's just one more layer. It's not like it's a, I'm totally secure behind a VPN. It's just one more layer of things that allows you to be a little bit more private.
At the end of the day, Rocco, I believe that if you did something untoward and the police were chasing you and they went to your VPN provider and they said, you must give us and show us where he was, no doubt the law would say that they have to give them that information, yes?
Well, on most you got to look at the privacy policy and the agreement that you go into with each VPN, and they're all different and what they track and what they log. But I found that private internet access has already been in that situation.
How much
where
is that?
The law
How much
has.
Does that cost you?
I think it was $30 a year.
How much does that cost?
So, you have to look at what their privacy policy is. So they have already been up against that situation where the police, the government have come in and said, we want this information. And they said, sure, here's the information. And because that they don't log, they didn't have no information to give. So it's kind of like a win-win situation. So yeah, every VPN out there has different ways of logging, different time lengths of logging. Like some will log for 2 weeks, some will log for a month. Private internet access seems to be the best one, in my opinion, overall, that does not cooperate. And if you go to their blog, you'll read all of the blog posts that they make fighting for privacy and being an advocate of that. So, and that goes a long way, man.
Okay.
So So not to go full tinfoil hat, but the argument isn't just ads. It's the kind of information that could be used to determine job eligibility, insurance eligibility, or used against you in court. Yes, correct. Yep. So when they are able to pull your history, your logs, then yeah, they pretty much have everything. And can use that in court against you if they need to. Not that I would need to, because I'm not doing anything illegal, but it's the idea. I don't want them to have that info.
Okay.
Now they say you can create your own VPN, and you can. You can, do multiple different ways of doing it, but it's way easier just to have private internet access. Way easier. I'll pay the $30 and have them do it because, like I said, you have to trust your info with somebody, so you have to pick the best somebody to trust it with. So.
Yeah, I'll pick me.
Well, that's what it comes down to, is if you don't know, I mean, you can read all you want. You're only going by the information that's provided to determine whether you're getting the best service or not, and then feedback from people who may have had experience. So,
well, that's why you got to go further than just reading the website. You have to go, and that's why I said private internet access has been in the news.
Well, if you feel safe, then I guess use it.
It's been in the news for court cases where they have, like I said, they have been asked for information and basically gave nothing away. So yeah, I definitely don't just read the cover and say, "Oh yeah, here you go."
Yep. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happened now that, like, if other countries start following suit, like what Russia just did too, where they're banning VPNs and things like that. It's like, I mean, can they really? If you think about it, can they really ban them? If we use it within the continental U.S., unless they start doing it here too, because bouncing servers around here. I don't know. I still come back. I'm of the adage that the minute you log on, you're going to be exposed at some level, no matter what it is, VPN or not.
I'll give you another example of private internet access. They Canada put in some type of law, and I can't remember exactly what it said or what it was, but they had put in some kind of law that every VPN would have to log for a certain amount of time or do this or whatever. And it was going to be a mandatory law, and they actually dropped their Canada servers because of this, because they refused to comply with the law, and they would end up the servers would end up being taken over by the government if they didn't comply, so they shut them down. So those are the types of things that you can look at and say, well, they're on the up and up.
Right.
Has Toss, you tried the new Ubuntu at Toss? Can't hear you, Toss.
I think his connection is
yeah, it's not the best, is it? Yeah. It's frozen.
A couple people are frozen. Somebody's trying to join and can't.
Right.
No, I changed the setting in here, and I forgot when you do that, it bounces you. And now I see myself twice in there, it looks like. And it looks, well, maybe Carmine, too. He looks like he's hung up there, too.
Yeah, his connection's goofed up. Did you try Ubuntu Mate, the 1710, Joe?
What's that?
Did you try the alpha release of 1710 Mate?
I actually, it's funny that you say that, because I commented on your video today, because right when that thing uploaded, I was literally in a virtual box playing with it. I got it in a virtual box loaded up, and I actually, even in VirtualBox, have not experienced any real issues yet. I mean, it seems, of course, it's hard to tell with a VirtualBox, if it seems a little glitchy at all, whether it's the program or whether it's the VB that's doing it. But I'm liking what I'm seeing real well. I mean, and if it, when they come out with their stable release,
it's good.
I may actually consider hopping over just to try it. I'm still liking what I'm on, but ever since Michael got up my tree last week about this, about Mint being just a hodgepodge of everything, but you know what? The reality is it works, and
Look, man, if it's working for you, I mean, he's going on technical reasons of why it's, back end developer reasons why it's no good.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's a ton of people that love it.
Yeah.
Well, I liked Mate before I went to this, and you remember we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mate is simply fantastically boring, but it works.
You talking about Ubuntu Mate? Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's the thing. Mint's got a little bit more.
It just works.
Yeah. And Mint's got, it's working, and it's got a little bit more flair or flavor.
Mate, yeah. I mean, it just.
So.
I think Toss is on a delay, I think, at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's on a laptop. It's different.
Well, I don't know. I think that I said in the video that it would almost pay me to switch over to Ubuntu Mate when it comes out
on a laptop. Yeah.
Because it's that good. And when I had it installed before, I was running fine. The only reason I switched was because I was bored. And and Kdenlive was crashing on me. Those were the two reasons. So,
well, I'll tell you what, Michael's very knowledgeable, I must say, but he looks really in depth at things that we don't know, and that's the perspective he comes from, and sometimes he talks probably gibberish to me, because I'm not really up to speed with what he's talking about, because he's talking really in depth, but.
You know what though? Let me give you an analogy to that. When I was contracting for a living, I have the same tendency and I still have that knowledge, of course, even though I'm not doing it anymore. But even when it comes to computer stuff that I do know about, I feel this need to, I guess, over-explain to the average user or average client or whatever. And it was the same thing in my construction. I tried to give them full. Yeah. Concept right down, and then you start getting too technical, and you realize you're talking over our head.
That's right.
He wasn't completely over our heads. I mean, there's some things he gets a little over with than what we may understand. But what I do trust his opinion, and I loved Ubuntu Mate before this, and if it wasn't for that menu hiccup, I probably would have been still on it. And then when Carmine said he was on Linux Mate, I thought, well, let me give that a run. And I'm really liking it, So I think the Mate flavor in general, I'm not going to say no matter which one you're at, because I actually tried to load Solus in here. And coincidentally, I know you guys are talking about how you really liked it. I'm not thrilled with it right now, just for a few minutes. And it literally was just a few minutes, because it just didn't float my fancy right out of the gate.
So what was it about Solus that you didn't care for?
Well,
and which one were you using?
My setup in the VirtualBox, it seemed very sluggish and clunky. And I know that's contrary to what everybody's saying it works. So it might have been actually my fault with the setup in VirtualBox. So I need to give it another fair shot. Maybe even load it on an actual machine. I've got enough computers laying around here. I could load it.
I was going to say, I remember Ike saying about them having issues with VirtualBox, and although they fixed it, they might not have fixed everything with it. So it may not run near as well on a virtual machine as it does on.
No, you're not going to get a good experience. You will not get a good experience with Solus and VirtualBox. It never really has been. I haven't tried it in VirtualBox lately, but I think they had put some support for it, but. That may not be 100%, so that may be the reason. Which desktop environment did you install, Joe?
Mate.
Oh, the Mate version. Hey, that's a good version of Solus. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think that's why I was thinking today. It probably was my fault, and I quick took it out, and then that's when I put Ubuntu in there. But I have. A Dell machine in the back room that I use for an HTPC, and I actually have Linux Mate on it now. And I built this it's a cube. It's a 6x6 by 3-inch computer that I was going to build for resale, and I'm very seriously thinking about keeping it. And I, believe it or not, put Windows 10 on it, Pro. because I thought that's what people would want, and I'm very seriously considering keeping that now as my HDPC and maybe pull that other one out as my test machine, and that would be and the reason why I'm saying that is because that's got at least an i3 in it. I'm sure Solus would probably run well even on a 2011 Dell Optiplex that I've got sitting back here, but I'm thinking this one's got a little bit better hardware, 6 gigs of RAM, you know, it's got a terabyte drive, so that might be a better machine to test that. And I do think from time to time, if you're going to truly test the distro, you need to do it on an actual native machine versus a virtual box. You know, even as powerful as what I've got sitting here, it's still, we've talked about that before. There's only so much control you have over a virtual box, you know, so.
Only way to be sure.
Sorry.
What's
Heather,
that,
there is a workaround.
Only
for
way
that.
to be sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I actually run.
I prefer
I run,
actual machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. Like I said before, Rock, I run operating systems through a dock. So I dock internal hard drives on an external dock through USB 3. Now, when I install Solus to that, it is so slow, right? It's not the fault of the operating system. It's just that the USB 3 running a system is slow itself. So the experience between that and on real hardware is completely different. And that's not even VirtualBox. That's just running over a USB 3. So it's a lot slower. So it really depends. Real hardware you can't beat.
No.
It's the best
So
way
it'd be
to know.
interesting that little cube machine I built. It's actually an ASRock 110. That it's a really neat little machine, and honestly, I've even toyed with the idea of just maybe using that as, you know, a Linux machine. Even though I've got Windows on it, I might just take it off, because that actually has a Kaby Lake. It's the i5 7500 in it. So it's not even a U processor. It's an actual full-blown desktop processor in this little compact thing. But the thing is I've been reading more and more. There's been some discussion in some Linux user groups that I've been in about the whether you want to use UEFI. Is there an advantage to it? Well, not all distros like them, but it would be interesting to see even how the distros run on that new hardware, because when you get into Kaby Lake and now the next one that's going to be next gen that's going to be coming out, it makes you wonder, is any of that stuff going to be locked down or not? Because I know Windows is locking down a lot of stuff already. Even Intel come out with their next processor that's supposed to come out. They're basically saying you're going to need new motherboards. They won't even run on the current motherboards if you wanted to update. So
yeah, this is a good advertisement for Linux, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but you know, when you're talking about the newer hardware, you're more or less going to have to run the newer systems. Maybe not a newer system, but something that runs the newer kernels. That runs the latest stuff, because that's where you're going to benefit most from it. Otherwise, if you're running the older stuff, you may not even find support for the newer cards and the newer processors and whatnot. So
yeah, because I think if I remember right, it's a 4. Is it 4.4 that's still in here? Whatever flavor, but I know the kernel that's in here, I don't remember the exact one, but I see 4.10's available, but I don't dare change it, because the last time I did that, I broke the OS.
Well, Linux Mint is different as far as as
far
as the
there it is. There it is. There it is.
But usually you can update the kernel without issues. But you're right, on Mint, sometimes it's a little hairy. But going back to Solus, I'm telling you, the only reason that I would not run Solus is because of the software, like certain pieces that I need. Other than that, I would run Solus in a heartbeat. Mike Gold.
And probably Mate.
There's Mike.
Hi, Michael.
4.0, yeah, 4.453 is what's in here now. So
yep,
it's doing its job, and that's all that matters. So, but
yeah.
It's all that matters.
Were your ears ringing, Michael?
We were talking about you.
Yeah, we'll chat about it, Michael.
They were telling everybody how they don't want to hear from you.
That is not true.
That's definitely not true. But
You didn't go that far, did
Last
we?
week that I got Ubuntu Mate loaded up 1710 on a VirtualBox right now. And no sooner I did that, Rocco posts a video about it. So, yeah.
what way do you set up your
There he
partition
goes.
on your main Linux OS? I have I have a 500 gigabyte solid state drive, and I forget exactly. I think and you get so many different opinions on the solid state drives, whether you should leave some people say you need to leave some empty space at the beginning, at the end, in order to optimize everything. So a long time ago, I set up the partitions, and I haven't changed them. So there's like a 1 gigabyte space in the front and a 2 gigabyte space in the back, and in between I have a 30 gigabyte root partition, and then the rest of it, the other 400 and some gigabytes, are the home partition.
Man, this is really technical here. Jeez.
Well,
Just a solid state.
like I said, I just picked this up. It just came today, and that's what my next Linux distro is going to go on. And honestly, I've never worried about. I have optimized it for like the trim, like the same thing you do in Windows, but I've never done anything else with it. I've never had an issue with them.
Well, you find so many articles out there that say, "Oh, this is what you do for solid state." No, this is what you do. Oh, you got to enable this, and there's no really concrete evidence. Everybody has an opinion on it, but there's no really concrete evidence to say, this is the best.
I leave 2 gigabyte unallocated space at the end, which is an opinion I read, but I don't do it at the front, so I don't know whether that's right or wrong. And also, I think Solus has the best support for that, because they have the no A time, I think it is, in the FS tab by default. So that, and I think trim's set up by default on everything now, I believe, isn't it? On most operating systems. Michael, you'd know that. No, it's not.
Not necessarily.
Weekly, isn't it set weekly by default in the cron? Is it? I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, I was paying attention to the chat, Colin.
No, that's all right. No, that's fine. I'm sure I'm pretty sure Ubuntu does trim by default, I think, as a weekly thing.
Trim
I know
by default for weekly?
Shane says that he uses ext2 for his boot partition because of not having the constantly cache the drive. So for an SSD, I don't know. Like I said, there's so many opinions out there. I don't know. I mean, that may be a good idea. I don't know.
Well, that's one of the things they talk about. There's been mixed opinions about the constant writing back on the drive, and that's what will shorten the life of an SSD.
Yeah,
That's what even when they talk about in Windows about defragging it, they say you never defrag an SSD, but then you look at like PC Perspective guys when they're on there talking, and they're saying no, you can very well defrag them, and you actually should, because they can still get junked up too. So it's like you don't know, and unless you have some, they say typically an SSD will last 75 years. So unless you got 75 years of life out of it, or even 50 years of life out of it, to be able to really tell, hard testing it. How do you test this in an environment to really tell what's damaging to it or not?
Well,
People
we can't
treat them to be like as vulnerable as USB drives used to be, and they're not even as bad as they were. Like when SSDs just came out, within the first year they were trash. And they would crash. They would fill up and crash within like a few months of use, and that's because the technologies wasn't at the level of stability yet. Now it's irrelevant. You don't even have to care. You could not do trim. You could not do anything at all. Just put the SSD in, put the machine, just do the default install. You're done. It's not a big deal.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
I just to test that, my SSD that's running right now, I did not do anything custom, no trim, nothing, and it's been on the same thing for like a year and a half, and it's not a problem.
Right. Any SSD I've ever used, I haven't had it.
Now, have you noticed differences between manufacturers as far as SSDs are concerned?
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, like, I usually go with Samsung, but I've had issues with other manufacturers like OCZ and
OCZ typically sucks for SSDs. They're not bad for RAM, but they're pretty bad for for SSDs. They might not be now, but they were for about a year ago or two, maybe 2 years ago. They would crash a lot. Kingston.
This was bad.
Kingston is okay, but with Kingston, do not get the high end ones, like the really high hard drive space, because those not worth it. Samsung is both good and bad, depending on if you get the Pro or the regular Evo. Like those are the ones that kind of like fluctuate. So like the Pros are always good, and the Evos are like 50-50.
Yeah,
then,
I got the Pro.
Crucial is weird because I had a Crucial crash on me. And it might not be Crucial's fault, mainly because the motherboard was a piece of crap and it sent signals that just crashed the machine for no reason. So it could be that Crucial died from that drive died from that situation. So it could have been that it didn't have compensation for power failure or something. But I've also had another Crucial that, like the MX100, that was really good. So I don't know. It's hit or miss most of the time. But that's also true for hard drives and just in general.
Yes. Yes.
Well, they're basically circuit boards. And electronics, I don't care what kind of electronics you got, it's going to be a 50-50, chance of when it's going to last. And this Western Digital, I'm trying for the first time. I do a lot of research. I wait to see. I don't get the product the minute it comes out. I actually have a 850 Evo and not the Pro in my business machine. I know they've done a lot of firmware updates, which have made them a lot more stable, things like that. But ironically, in my other machine, my 2013, that's been running a Seagate in there. It's a 240, and I, knock on wood, haven't had one stitch of issues with that. And I know Seagate, and even when I bought that, if you were back in 2013, if you were to buy a mechanical drive, back then Seagates were on a downcline with the stability of their drives, and now they've actually gotten a lot better. And some people say they're even better than the Western Digital. So it still comes down to personal preference too. But I look at, I'm really look at reviews and history, and I try to read into the feedbacks a little bit too. You can kind of tell who's really maybe more novice or doesn't know what the heck they're talking about. And you see some other ones that, like some of them say they open them up and they're dead out of the box. Well, is that because they suck or there's a problem, or is it because it's like any other circuit board, or any other electronics? It's, today it's good, tomorrow you get you get electrical storm, and all of a sudden you may not get fried that minute, but all of a sudden it fails after you've gotten a shock that you didn't know about. There's a lot of factors that come into this. So
absolutely, it's
a lot of it is
discussion that's pretty much will never end.
Yeah, a lot of it is, like you said, it's like user preference. It's what you're used to, and what you've bought. Like for me, I know that most of the time Western Digital have held up for me better than other hard drives. Seagate have been
hard drives wise
down the list of lousy, and then. I forget what the other maker is that I will never buy again. They got bought out by somebody, but it's all based on what you bought and what worked for you. I mean, that's what people put up on reviews. So, I mean, if you asked me, that's my opinion. You asked Michael, he's going to have a different opinion because of what he's been used to and what his experiences are.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had until a few months ago, I had 50 machines sitting here. And I stripped a lot of them out. There are a lot of Maxter drives in there. I remember back in the 90s, Maxter was popular. And you got machines here that are 10, 12 years old and still have Maxter drives in them. They were actually pretty decent drives for what they were at the time, So
we still are.
Toshiba's another one. I know the one you're thinking of. It's on the tip of my tongue. I'll think of it eventually here while we're on, hopefully. But there's another one that's out there that's a pretty popular one that's in there that had an awful reputation, but when you look it up, it's 50-50. Oh, God, it's H.
Hitachi.
I forget what it is, but it's like, but that's not what I was talking about. But
that's what he was referring to.
Yeah.
But Crucial, when we talk about Crucial, I've got Crucial RAM that I just moved from my older machine to my new one. And if you remember right, Rocco, I mentioned it on one of the last shows too, where I had short cycling going on. And that's when I realized that I think I broke the kernel in the Linux OS that I had, because as soon as I loaded this up, I didn't have that issue anymore. And I put it in my business machine purposely, not that I want that fail. I haven't had a problem with it. And I had actually opened up a warranty claim against it because it's got lifetime, and they said, well, you know what? To be sure, even though you think it's one module, you think you got it nailed down, send back both. And then I called them. I said, well, I don't think it's the modules anymore. And they said, well, we'll leave it open. And if you want to send them back, fine. If not, no big deal. And if you have a problem on the road, give us a call again. So from their customer support standpoint, from that way, that's the first time I've ever had to do that. They were fantastic. And I haven't had any history issues with the SSDs I've used of them. And even like you mentioned, Michael, I had a 64 gig Kingston that I was running Linux on. The way I kind of look at it with some of these SSDs too, especially with running Linux, unless you're using Linux as a business machine or something that's got critical data and all that other stuff going on, which again, I have secondary drives and backups and all that. I look at it as, I don't care. Okay, it's a pain in the butt, but if I got to reload it and put a new drive in, it doesn't bother me. That's what I find the beauty of Linux, because it's not a hassle to reload it when you have to.
Michael, do you just going back to what you were saying before? Do you use swap or unallocated disk space, or do you
I use swap.
You use swap on an SSD as well?
I use a swap file.
Right, a swap file. Okay.
Yeah, a swap file a swap partition
wasn't needed.
It's not needed. No. It's not needed, but why?
It wasn't needed for an SSD swap file.
Is it just me, or is his connection really bad?
His connection's messed up.
Okay, so the SSD doesn't need a swap, but it should. You don't need a swap period unless you want to do hibernation, and you absolutely need it because it's impossible to do hibernation without. Yeah, so you can't. There's certain things that a swap is required to do, like hibernation. But if you don't do any of these things, then it doesn't matter. You could do it without swap. But unless you have like really intensive resource usage, you might have to put some of your stuff in swap while you're doing other things. So a swap file allows you to not allocate any of the data. You say, this is how much the swap file can be, but until it needs to be used, it's nothing. Whereas a swap partition is automatically allocated before you do anything. So you're not wasting anything with the swap file.
So when you talk about it being needed for hibernation, are you talking the same as suspend, or is it different?
Hibernation and suspend are not the same thing. Suspend is you turn off the majority of it, but your machine is still running. Your RAM is still active. Hibernation is everything is your machine is basically turned off, but there's still a bit of power going to the drive, and everything is stored in the drive. So it's the absolute minimum you can be without totally turning it off. And when you turn the computer back on, it pulls everything back from the drive, from the swap partition or swap file, then it puts it back in the RAM and everything. So what suspend is like, let's say you cut like 50% of the power down. Hibernation turns it about 80% off.
So then, for me, if I'm not using suspend, or if I'm not using hibernation, and I'm only using suspend, I don't need the swap file.
Not necessarily. I mean, there's certain things that it's not just hibernation, but that's just the biggest one that you can point to. Some people use, but there's other things it can do. But there's the most important thing is if people are using a ton of resources and they're doing like audio rendering or something, that could be a problem. If you don't have swap, you're trying to do too many things at once, you could write some things to swap and not have to worry about it. But for the majority of the time, most people will not need swap. I mean,
is it Ubuntu Mate that's got the swap file in it now? I thought one of them came out, they had the swap file in it.
I think Ubuntu said they're going to change to a swap file.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was just Ubuntu, but it might have been Ubuntu Mate. But yeah, switching to a swap file should have been done a long time ago. But like, swap files are a lot better, just because they.
Some in the chat wants to know if some programs require a swap file to run.
No. I wouldn't think anyone would need one unless you. No, that'd be weird to require swap to exist. If you have low RAM, maybe, So if you need a machine that need like an application that needs a extensive amount of RAM to run, and it has to compensate using swap, then maybe. But more than likely, in that situation, the program just won't run.
I think you're right there. I think when you have like 2 gigs of RAM or something, you might want one. But if you got 8 or more, you might be all right without it. And like you said, it also depends on the task. Now, if you're doing heavier tasks, even with 8 gigs, it might not be enough. But if you got 16 gigs or something like that, then yeah, you could probably get by without it with no problem.
What do you think of what Shane said? It's useful for video editing.
Yeah, that's one of the examples I was giving. I was giving audio editing and stuff like that, audio rendering, because that's more likely because people do that more often. But video editing is more intensive, so it would actually you'd use it more often than, depending on your RAM setup. Like if you have a 8 gigs of RAM or more, you probably won't need to, because your rendering will be done like right at the end, unless you're editing and rendering at the same time. So you're doing multiple videos. Then maybe if you had 8 gigs, you might use swap. But if you have like 16 gigs, you're probably not going to get up to that point. But like I have 16 gigs, so I rarely use swap. But during video editing is when it usually happens.
Right.
Huh. I wonder if that's part of the issues with Kdenlive, because
Well, I'm going to swap my laptop in my bed. So.
See you, Toss.
See ya.
See you, Toss.
Take care, man.
I wonder if that's.
I'm going to bed, guys. Sorry.
All right. Have a good night.
When I'm running Kdenlive, okay, so I've looked at, if it's using any swap or not. And it's never using any swap, but I've never looked at it while video editing. And there are times where Kdenlive will crash, and I wonder maybe if that has anything to do with it. Maybe it runs out, or.
It depends on when you get the crash. Like there are certain things in Kdenlive that is just like broken. Like Kdenlive is my favorite. I think they're the best video editor, especially open source video editor. Like OpenShot is a complete joke in comparison. But when you get to the point of you're editing a lot of stuff or you're doing things, Kdenlive has bugs that will make it crash on specific examples. Like, for example, there's a few wipes that if you activate a wipe, it will just die. If you make a custom wipe for transitioning, it will just die. Like I made a custom wipe, and the only thing I did, there's the clock wipe that does this, and it does like a little circle around.
Yes.
I made a clock wipe, same exact thing, except I turned it from here to here, so it starts here and die. Like absolutely no reason. It's the same kind of file, just die.
Well, I was telling Colin about my woes making the Ubuntu Mate video today, because I think I said it was an 8-minute video. It took me like 4 hours to edit, because I was like all done and everything was perfect, and I had not hit save or anything for the longest time, and Kdenlive crashed and I lost everything up until like the first 3 minutes that I had started editing. I had to re-edit.
So
I found out with Kdenlive, if you hit the undo button like a crazy man when you get frustrated, it'll crash.
Yes, I found the same thing.
So I found the bug in Kdenlive that I reported to them. I don't think they ever responded, but it was so infuriating that I started documenting how often it crashed, because I can guarantee it's going to crash, and it's going to crash in one way, and then utterly destroy your data in the project. Yep. So if you do, this is stupid, by the way, but this is a problem. You create a whole timeline, you create all these different things, you get these clips, you make transitions, basic fade transitions, nothing special. You don't need to do anything special, just a simple fade. If you have this timeline, you go, oh crap, I need to put something else in the beginning, and you spread and separate, crash.
Yeah.
But not even that. That's not the worst part. If it just crashed and I have to go, I gotta rebuild some of it, that's not bad. That would be, I'd have to just open the application. No. Let's crash and destroy all of your work and say there's something wrong with your transitions. And then when something happens with your transitions, you would assume it would just delete all your transitions, and I'd be like, that would be annoying. But no, that's worse. They take every clip you make, duplicate it minimum twice. Sometimes they even do it like triple copies,
and it spread randomly throughout the timeline. And then there's transitions randomly sitting where there's nothing there. There's no clips. It's just the transition sitting there. And it goes from a 5-minute clip to like a 50-minute clip, and everything's just scattered. It is utterly destroyed is what it does. It doesn't just crash. It just destroys all the data. So the point where it happened to me twice, and I was infuriated the second time. I was pissed the first time. I was like, well, what's weird? What happened? The second time, I was infuriated to the point where I started recording, and I made a video describing how piece of crap this bug is and sent it to them, and they never responded because I was probably a little harsh, mainly because it wasn't like
I can't
it just
see you being harsh, man.
a little bit, and it's mainly just because it's not the bad thing that has a problem. Like, I understand bugs, whatever. It's the fact that instead of just canceling and keeping your last save, it destroys your save. Not the current content. I mean, you have one. I save meticulously every 5 minutes, all the time. Even if I've just changed like a value of duration, and that's it, I save it, like paranoia wise, and they destroy the save project file. Like, it's awful. So at one point, I started like making copies of my project files. So like every 10 minutes, I'd make a copy of that file. I got to one point where I had like 20 different project files for the same thing. And the sad thing is, it destroyed 6 of them.
Oh,
Wow.
So I had to go back and like find where's the last one it didn't destroy, and then I had to like, and it's also impossible to move it. Like once this bug is found, you cannot move the timeline files if you have transitions. So I had to like render what I had with transitions and then render another piece and then put them together. It was the only option to save my work. And it still took me an extra hour just to do that. So anyway, that's me complaining about something I still think is fantastic. Like, Shane was asking about DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah.
And DaVinci Resolve is good, but I don't like the idea of having to install an application with a SH script. There's no package manager. There's no real file format. It's just you want me to install root level scripting with a proprietary embedded binary.
Right.
No thanks.
Yep.
Not that I think they would do anything, just out of principle of how terrible that is. Like, of all the options for formats to release on Linux, that is the worst. So, no. I've never even tried DaVinci Resolve purely for that reason. And especially considering they can use AppImage.
Yeah.
And more annoyingly, they already do. They use AppImage on a different program that they make, and they do it poorly. They do the AppImage format poorly. So it's kind of ridiculous. Like they need to just DaVinci should what's the name of the company? Black Design or something? Black Magic Design?
Black Magic Design.
Yeah. They need to work on how they format stuff. Because I understand people don't want to format for Linux because it's an irritating thing. And I agree. But AppImage solves all that, so just use it.
I actually come across Mikey the other day, Rocco, and I said to him, we need to get Zoom put in the software center for Big Daddy. And he said, proprietary.
That's what he said.
Yeah, proprietary.
That's what he
He
told me.
responded, so why is Google Chrome in the repo?
Yeah, well, I was thinking that myself, actually, and I was thinking, why don't they do Zoom in an app image? Can't they do that? Or is it because it's proprietary as well?
No, AppImage is you can use proprietary in AppImage if you want.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
Well, the reason that he gave for putting Chrome in and not Chromium is because he said that Chromium basically uses pretty much the same backdoor type things as Chrome does, so it doesn't follow the open source standard. So if you're going to have Chromium, you might as well have Chrome there. That's
not true, but okay.
That was what he had given the reason for it. Now he may have a more technical reason as far as what it does, but
no, there
there was an issue a long time ago where Google tried to put stuff into Chromium, and people were like, no. If you want to make it open source, you make it open source. Don't put your proprietary crap in there. So they did try to do that at one point. So what's to stop them in the future from trying again? Nothing. But if that's the reason, who cares? Package both of them then. Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
well, I think he doesn't want to do, like, I was talking to him the one night, and he was talking about redundancy, and he doesn't want two packages that do the same type of thing. He wants to pick one and go with it, and that's kind of why Zoom isn't there, because it's proprietary, and he's already got other apps in there that do the same thing. So, I don't know.
So he wants to do favoritism. Okay, cool.
We need
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's his distro. I'm just telling you why.
Touching back on the drives again, was it Hitachi? Because that's what came to mind now.
No, it wasn't for me.
earlier.
Oh, I can't remember the drive that I had it while you guys were talking. I had it, and I was going to say this is the drive that I will never buy again, and then I lost it. You know, the old age thing, and I never did get it, so it just left me.
There's a whole list of them. Like you said, OCZ. There's Plexter. There's, IBM. There's a whole realm of them out there that, even AMD has drives, but
right. Well, I was talking more spinning drives, but as far as SSDs are concerned, I had a few that died on me early, like within 6 months to a year, and I forget exactly the brands of them they were. I know one Patriot died on me like that. The OCZ, Muskin, yeah, and
see, those are all technically considered good drives. It's just I still come back to a circuit board's a circuit board's a circuit board. It's hit or miss on whether you're going to have a good one or not. And like I said, again, static electricity, who knows what?
There's also lines that are entirely garbage.
What's that?
There are lines sometimes where people companies make manufacturing lines that are garbage. Like SanDisk in the beginning made a few lines that were just the entire stack was garbage.
SanDisk was one of the other ones that died on me within 6 months. And this is going back to what you said, where this was at a time when the SSDs just came out and the technology just wasn't there. And, it was great to see the speed, the speed difference from the spinning drive to an SSD, but they just didn't last as long.
SanDisk were mostly known for never using their SSDs, but then only using the SD cards and stuff like that, where they always made the best SD cards. And now their SSDs are actually pretty solid. Like you can be fine with it with the SanDisk.
Well,
I find they really space.
Flash drives are good too. I bought a 10-pack a while back. I've written to those things so many times that there's a couple of them I finally wore out from writing so many distros to them on and off and on and off, and you kill half of the sectors. But those things are no different. People don't realize that flash drives. You always say a DVD when you're backing up a VHS tape to a DVD because you're putting on new media. Well, a DVD eventually that data can kind of fade away or disappear, and actually a flash drive can technically do the same thing in theory, but now I think with the technology getting better, that's not necessarily as true. But I think when you're like what we do, with constantly writing ISOs to them or whatever to load stuff, and you're going to wear out things a lot faster. But the SSDs themselves, nowadays, you're right. It's like any other product. First of all, number one, you don't know who's rebranding. You could have. It used to be like a VCR. Let's go back again. Another analogy. People go, oh, is it Panasonic? Is it whatever the brands were? Well, technically, they were made by two companies, and it's whoever put their brand name on it. And that's the same thing with buying an appliance. You've got all these different manufacturers out there, names on them, but they're all made by maybe just a couple of them.
It's the same thing.
Now, there are budget lines in something like this too with the SSD. All the products that they have a budget line, they have a better line, whatever, and
it's the same thing all over though, man. It's even like I work in a grocery store, and even down to the bread in the bread aisle. There's 85,000 different choices on bread, and there's only 3 bakeries.
Exactly.
And they all package it in different packaging, and you think, oh, this one's better, and it's the same exact bread, but it's got the brand name on it, and you think it's great.
I worked for a brief time when I transitioned up out of state when I came to Wisconsin from Illinois, and I worked in a cheese factory for a very short time. And they had this big room with this big massive vat in there, and they ground up all this Parmesan cheese, and then they go and get Kraft, and they go and get Sargento or whatever brand cans, and they put the same cheese in all of them. You know, so it was the same thing, just different brand names on it. So.
Well,
I've got a Windows 10 running on I think it's a Silicon Power. It's Silicon Power. I bought one of those. I think it was a 240 gig quite a while ago. Still running, but I don't know if they're any good, Silicon Power. Just bought it because it was cheap. Because back then they were pretty expensive. So
as long as it's still running, man.
It's got a Windows 10 Insider program on it, so I don't want to get rid of that because it's the original Insider one. So, yeah.
Well, what do you think about the we were talking about NAS backup last week, and the NAS drives, they recommend the HD Reds, which are 5400 RPMs, and is that okay? So 5400 RPMs are obviously slower drives. So is that an issue when you're copying files? I mean, is it going to copy that much slower, or what?
That's what you should want.
I know they're supposed to be stable and they last long and everything else, but is that going to slow down everything to a halt?
Nah, with NAS, you're not going to be writing to it that much. You're going to move files over and you're going to read. The 54 RPM does not hurt reading at all. It hurts writing to it. So, like if you're going to stream video or something, you're going to store documents and stuff like that. The writing's going to be slowed, but it's going to be a lot more stability, and you can be, and especially if you have a good RAID system, you can pretty much guarantee your data's fine. But the odd, like most people don't write, if they have a NAS anyway, they shouldn't write to it that much. So you just have like this big chunk you send on, like, oh, I got a new files once a week. You get new files, you just put it in the NAS. But you typically don't put a lot of effort into writing to a NAS. It's mostly just reading. So the speed of the drive doesn't matter.
So the first backup might be really, really long, but
the first one might be, depending on how much data you have to put on there. But that's also true regardless of if you have a 10,000 RPM, it's not. I mean, you're going to save some time, but you're going to save maybe like an hour or two over the course of like 8 hours,
right?
Depending on how much data you have. Like if you have like 60 gigs or something to move over, that will be probably like an hour. Not a big deal.
No, I would have like probably 500 to 800 gigabytes worth of stuff to move over there. So that would probably take a while.
That would take a couple hours, but it would only add probably maybe like an hour and a half on top of that.
Well, it seems like a good system for backup. So
the red drives are supposed to be, they run a bit, well, the green drives were supposedly the coolest drives, but red drives are supposed to be the cooler running because they are slower. And I agree with Michael where there's a stability issue. Again, I like to use analogies, but the example, if you're driving, you got a car that's driving at 55 and another one's driving at 80, which one do you think is going to, handle a curve more stable? Kind of that thing, or whatever. It's kind of the same principle too. Not saying that if it's fast, you're going to necessarily,
What if the 50 is a 15-passenger van and the 80 is a sports car?
Yeah,
you're not going to tell the muffler joke again, are you? I told one guy at work that he was cracking up.
It's a good pun, okay?
It was good. It was good. It was good.
There's also, I forgot, like, I don't know if I've told you this one, but every joke can be a dad joke as long as it's apparent.
Right.
I've got to use that one. I like that one.
I got tons of bad jokes.
Are you going on did you look at the Synergy video that Dusky made? Did you, Rocco? Are you looking at doing that? Is that right?
Well, I did look at the Synergy video, and again, you go back to experience and what you've experienced, and I got to do a little bit more research before I go into anything, because I want to make sure it's the right thing for me. I mean, it may be right for somebody else. It may not be right for my situation. So I mean, they look really good. They support Linux right out of the box.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it looks good, but is there a better one? I don't know. I have to do a little bit more research to find out. Anybody
yeah,
have
they're
any?
pretty good anyway.
Anybody have any
Come on.
suggestions?
Are you talking about NAS box?
Yeah,
You're
Yeah.
not talking about getting the drives together with it, just the box itself.
just the box. Well, I mean, yeah, the Synergy has the box and they have the software, and then you add the drives to it.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's one of those plug and play ones.
Yes, exactly. And that may be something that I need. I don't know if I'm technical enough to set it up all on my own.
Yeah, I can't. I can't answer that one because I don't do the plug and play ones.
So
There was one that Chris Fisher had done a video on last year, I want to say sometime or earlier this year, that he set up in his motorhome. I can't think of what it was. I could probably look it up. I can't think of which one that was. I know it's not inexpensive, but he raved about the software and how it worked, and how well it worked, and so maybe do a search of his channel.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the
there's
other
a-
thing is too. I mean, you got to look at the expense on all of this. So, got to have money for it.
Synergy's like $500 or so.
It depends on which one you get. Yeah, Das did a video on the cheaper model, and there again, you got to do more research to see if it's going to work for you or not. But I think his model was like 120, and then you have the higher models that you said, like you said, they go to $300, $400, $500 models. So
The
Yeah, he said
$120 drive thing, I don't think then. I wouldn't
What's
think
that?
would. I wouldn't think that the 120 one would come with drives.
none of them come with drives. Not the
Oh,
ones
okay.
that I was looking at. I think it was $399 or $499, and it didn't come with any drives, but it came with all the super bells and whistles of everything. And
Okay.
is that even
Yeah.
worth it? Do you even need all that? That's
And that plugs straight into your router, does it, Rocco? Into your router? Is it?
Yep. It plugs right
Yeah.
into your router, and again, it has a program that it runs automatically and installs everything. It downloads and installs everything you need right to the box, to one of your drives, and then it runs from there as well. And it comes up with a nice application to, transfer all your files and set up backups and everything else. It looks really nice as far as a plug and play operation. It looks really simple to use.
There's another one if somebody wants to look into it. It's a plug and play like Synergy. It's called Drobo.
Drobo.
Mm-hmm.
How do you spell that?
DROBO.
DROBO.
Yeah, they basically do the same thing as Synergy.
We'll have to look into it.
I've got a USB 3 hard drive plugged into my router, but my read and write speeds are atrocious on that. So I don't know whether it's just the router itself that doesn't provide good enough speeds, or the wireless is just
Wireless is
not-
automatically limited.
Yeah, okay, that's why then, isn't it? It's
Well,
hardly
you can
worthwhile.
never go like an Ethernet jack has 10 times the amount of bandwidth space that Wi-Fi does.
Although I showed
So-
you my speed test, and I still have that same issue, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you're not using Wi-Fi anymore, right?
No, I am using Wi-Fi because it's faster. I know what you said. I'm just saying it's faster when I use Wi-Fi than it is when I use my Ethernet. I don't know why. It is. I can get 180, 200 megabit download speed on Wi-Fi. I can get 35, maybe 45 on Ethernet. Don't ask me why. I don't know.
I found it was QNAP that he did it on. And that's theoretically the software. They have the if you look up QNAP.com, you'll find it on there. I'm looking at it's like a TS251. Looks like their base model. It's a 2-drive model, and then they go up from there. That's the one he was kind of testing around. And
Who? Oh, you mean Das?
no, when I said Chris Fisher.
Oh, Chris Fisher. Okay, I
Yeah,
got
he
you.
did
I'm
that
sorry.
one he calls it Lady Jupes in his motorhome, and he was testing out a QNAP system in there or whatever. And
I think Noah hooked that one up.
Well, Drobo is $344 for the base unit. If you want to 1 terabyte drives, it's going to be $499. And it doesn't
To
say.
be fair, all I said is this another option to look at.
Yeah,
I do not.
That's a lot of
I just know it exists, and you might want to check it out. Well, that's it.
Yep. There you go. Well, it's another option, so.
And your network is weird.
And my network is weird, and I know it. I just don't know how to fix it. I mean, I don't know how I would get any faster than I have on Wi-Fi right now.
Do you have AC?
Like, what do you mean by AC? Like
802.11.AC.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like the fastest protocol you can do in 802.11. So I mean that explains why it's fast, but it doesn't explain why your Ethernet's slow. So that's really weird.
I don't know why it's slow. I mean, it's going through a switch, but I'm pretty sure the switch is capable of handling way more speed than it's given out, or at least what I'm getting.
You tried the settings on the router itself? Have you logged into that and tried?
Usually the router settings are in Greek, and I don't speak Greek, so.
Oh.
No, I have been in the router.
Translation from Socrates.
I have been in the router to set up the Wi-Fi and all that stuff, but other than
what kind of router
like setting up the advanced, it is. I don't know. It's downstairs. Hold on, I'll tell you in a second. I gotta. It's
192.9168.
Oh, you're killing me, dude. No, it's not the normal 168.
What? You got a 1010?
It's not the normal number, and I can't remember what it is. That I remember it not being the normal number.
127.0.0.1. That's probably not right. That's usually just home.
No, it's not right.
It's usually just the home IP.
No, that's not right. I'm just going to go to my...
ifconfig.
What?
What?
What'd you say?
What's up?
What did you say?
Ifconfig, ifconfig. You can also just now ifconfig has actually kind of been not necessarily deprecated because there's a lot of content in ifconfig that's good. There's a new command, just IP, and you just type in IP, and it tells you just the basics of what ifconfig is. Like everything that's in IP is also in ifconfig, but ifconfig also has a ton of gateway stuff that you don't need.
Right, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell me what it is. Like
yeah, it should tell you. It should tell you what your gateway portal is, what IP your portal is.
Negatives. No.
It should at least tell you the first two. And usually it's like 0.1 or 1.1 to get into the main admin.
Nope. It doesn't. I'm telling you.
All right. Well, now you're challenging me now.
I'm just telling you, it doesn't tell me that.
No IP on mine. No IP on mine.
Really? That's weird. IP is a default now in Debian.
I'm running Solus, so maybe it's not in.
He probably hasn't packaged it yet.
Yeah, okay.
You pretty much just if it hasn't been packaged yet. Like that's almost always true. So IP address, IP space address is usually what it is. Yeah, I get. It shows my gateway is 192.168. Shows your BRD value. That's not your path, but that should be good enough.
Okay. Yeah.
But to be clear, meh. Who cares? Because usually it's probably at the most it's probably like a firmware upgrade you need for your router.
Well, I don't think it's the router because the router is pretty darn good.
Okay.
I mean,
it's just weird because the only thing that the router and the switch are the only things that should be affecting your Ethernet, unless you have like some weird cat cable.
The switch, I would assume. Okay, so it is a TP-Link Archer C7.
Okay,
AC
that's
1750.
Yeah, that's AC. Yeah, that's a very good one.
Yeah, it's a good router. It's now the switch. I don't know. That is a Netgear ProSafe gigabit Ethernet switch.
Yeah, I don't know much about their switches. I've only used TP-Link switches. I don't know.
So this is 8 auto-sensing gigabit Ethernet ports. So it
could be
fast enough.
Be the switch. I mean, the router sounds like a good router because I mean I've had one of those and it was very solid. So I don't know. That's weird.
Nice, Todd. Nice. See, Todd got the same router. See.
Nice.
Great minds.
It is a very good one. The Archer series of TP-Link is their top of the line AC ones. Well, until you go into enterprise, the top of the line home residential stuff.
Yep. So I'm not exactly sure what the deal is with my. I don't know. Maybe it's my card on my motherboard or something. But I mean, it works. It just doesn't get a lot of speed on it. I mean, I don't have an issue where it disconnects or, I have big problems with it. It just doesn't get the speed that Wi-Fi does. Near the speed, not even close.
It's a
Netgear
kind of went running like a ridiculously long cable.
I'm sorry, what?
You could try using a 150-foot cable or something, however long it needs to be, and just going straight from the router to your computer and see if that's how you can test if the switch is bad or not.
Well, I'll have to do that. I'll have to, because it's a ridiculously long cable already, and it goes from down, because the router's downstairs, so it goes from downstairs up here and connects to the switch. Now the switch is right by the computer, so I can do that. I can unplug it and plug it directly into the computer and see if it changes anything. But
yeah, that's worth testing because my suspect is the switch. Not sure why, but it just seems like it doesn't seem like the router would be the problem.
Right. I got Netgear years ago, but I know after time it seemed like I was having more and more issues with their products. Now I haven't used them in so long because of that, and their reputation kind of was one of those that went down or declined for a while. Now whether they got any better or not, I can't tell you. I actually have an Asus router, and it's not. I don't even think mine's an AC router. It's been down there several years, and I've been happy with it. But it's probably going to be time to update pretty soon. But you might want to just do some research on it, Rockwell, and see what people are saying about that. Maybe it is a fact because it's the Netgear switch.
Yeah,
I don't have a good flavor in my mouth from them because of an experience years ago, but I don't know if they've gotten better again.
I have the same problem with Netgear. They just burn me too many times.
Right. Yeah. TP-Link. I actually have TP-Link internal cards in here for my wireless, and I've been very, very happy with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I've used TP-Link.
I have issues with my wireless keeps dropping out because every time one of the kids are on the Xbox or the PlayStation, I have to go from 2.4 gig to 5 gig and back again. And sometimes I can't even open a Google homepage. It's just, and sometimes I just got to reset it. And then it works. Sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know whether I've got like wireless interference somewhere within the neighbors or something. I'm not sure.
Sounds like this for a long time. Consoles are using a different band.
Yeah.
Colin, have you ever done a firmware update on your router?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did the update and everything, and done a few. I even tried manually changing the settings to see if I could get it to use a different range or whatever it is. And
I gotta actually check. Go ahead.
It just seems
sorry.
It didn't change anything at all. So I don't know. It just seems to be. And I've got another one called Nighthawk, which somebody's given me to have a look at. I'm going to try and turn off the Wi-Fi on my existing router, plug that into the router, and see if that Wi-Fi and that thing works better.
Well,
so try that.
I was going to say is depending on your firmware too. You may want to. I regularly check mine because probably 6 months ago I had an update. I did it.
Right.
I had nothing but grief, and then all of a sudden, a month and a half later, another firmware update came out and it corrected whatever they broke when they did the last one. So, I would do a regular check just to see if maybe it was a patch or something like that. Most people don't think about that stuff.
True. Good idea, Joe. I might do that again because it wasn't that long ago I did that, but still, like you say, there might be a patch coming through or something. So yeah, I'll have a look.
I started wondering if I wasn't having problems with my internal card, because it was getting so spotty. And then as soon as I did that update, it was fine. But the other thing too is, and this might sound a little, I don't think it's odd because you guys don't understand, especially depending on what kernels are running and what distro. You can, depending on what distro you're running, could potentially affect it too, because I have noticed that too when I've had different distros. Matter of fact, I think when I had Mint KDE in here, it was chopping out like crazy. And as soon as I went, you know, to this, it's been fine. So. And
that's, you know, and it's a good point. It's a good point you bring up, because I seem to notice it more on probably Solus than anything else. But I don't know whether that's the case or not. But I'm definitely going to probably look at trying a few more distros to see whether it does change anything. So
I would check your firmware though first. You know.
Just yeah, no, I'll definitely do that first. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
How'd you go, Rocco? What'd you do?
I checked my cable. I definitely am running a Cat 6 cable, so that shouldn't be an issue. I should just I actually am on Wi-Fi now, so it wouldn't hurt me to check the connection, but I don't want to mess the stream up, so I'll check it later.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't think I should check the connection right now?
Not during a live stream. That's every time I've ever been on a stream or a podcast or of any kind, and then let's just try it on the stream and see what happens.
Yeah, right.
Let's do it at the end of the stream, Rocco. We'll do it at the end of the stream. We'll do a countdown.
Yep.
Chris Fisher likes to do that on the shows. Hey, let's install this brand new thing from the AUR and see what happens. Broke something.
I have a tendency to do that too, so hey.
He'll even say on the show that he's going to do it. He's like, "Yep, I'm going to do it." See what? You could have just done it like an hour before and just not during the stream,
right?
But
so when you're using a NAS drive, just to ask, because I don't have a lot of experience in this area, but if you was to set up a NAS drive, you are better off to have wired internet and not use it through wireless. Is that right? Is it better off?
It'll be, the throughput will be better. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it really wouldn't necessarily matter depending on how much what kind of bandwidth you're using through it. So if you're gonna like watch some movies from it, like if you're doing 1080p, you're probably fine. If you want to do like anything higher than that,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So reading is a lot better than writing.
Yeah. I mean, writing it'll take a while over Wi-Fi, for sure.
Yeah, but reading is a lot quicker, isn't it?
Unless you're online.
Unless you have Rocco's problem, then yeah.
So how hard is it to set up a NAS, but without the plug and play stuff?
Not. It's that's a interesting question to because it depends on the skill level, right? So like for me, it's not that big of a deal, but like I don't know.
How in depth is it? I mean, what exactly do you got to do to set it up?
You need a file system that supports RAIDs, and you need one that's a solid support. Like you don't want to use like a basic extended. You can maybe use extended for. I wouldn't do it. I would use either ZFS or XFS.
Oh, so you got to use a different file format. Woo.
I would.
Now, do you have to do that for like the plug and play ones? Or do they do that automatically? Or
they should do it automatically. They should format the drive for you, because that's what the software you're installing should be able to do. So
I think
whatever you put in there should be empty, and then it'll just like set it up for you. Yeah, it's got to separate from the other drives too. So it's gonna wipe whatever's in there. So make sure you get the data off.
So when you have two hard drives in a RAID situation, you've got like a RAID 1, which is like mirrors one hard drive to the other, is it? Mm-hmm. And RAID 2, you've got one hard drive, and or RAID 2 is the two hard drives put together, is it? I'm not.
Not exactly. But there's 11 different RAIDs.
11 different RAIDs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right.
It depends
on
the
most common.
RAID 0 or RAID 10? RAID 10 probably is the most common.
And how does that work? Can I ask?
Well, RAID 10 is usually like the more drives you have, it's sharing data, duplicating all the content on all the drives. So if one drive dies, it'll have pieces on the other drive. So like no one drive has all the content. No one drive has a copy of everything. So like, but you usually have more than 4. You're like probably at least 4 on that kind of RAID. But it depends on your structure. Like you can have all kinds of setups for RAIDs. Just don't use RAID 5 or 6. You're probably not. It's probably not necessary to use those, so don't just avoid those. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you don't use those. 10 is fine. 8 is fine. 0, 1, and 2 are fine. And the rest, I would just kind of like wait until you kind of get more experience to use those. And the reason why I would use XFS or ZFS is because they do copy on write. Well, no, XFS doesn't have copy on yet. They have snapshotting. They're working on copy on write. ZFS has copy on write and snapshotting, but it doesn't have a pull shrinking. It doesn't have pull shrinking, whereas XFS does have pull shrinking. So it depends on what you want from your system, as far as or what your RAID your NAS system is set up for. Butterfs isn't. I don't know. It's weird because there's like people talking about how, like Oracle talking about like not using Butterfs or something. I know for a fact that Butterfs 5 and 6 RAID are broken. I don't know if all RAIDs are broken. I mean, I know that not all RAIDs are broken, but like they've also talked about like not using certain things for Butterfs, and it's just like that seems awkward. I don't want to deal with that. ZFS is the best for a lot of data, and if you don't care about shrinking your pool size, XFS is the best if you do care about shrinking your pool size and don't need copy on write. Extended 4 is fine if you're just doing a basic RAID.
So, and you use, a lot of people say that Ubuntu server is the best one to start with if you're not familiar with all this. Is that correct?
If you're doing a Linux RAID, yeah. If you're doing, if you're just going to use like the simplest structure, it'd probably be FreeNAS.
FreeNAS.
Yeah, because it's just it's a NAS an operating system specifically for NAS usage, and it's based on BSD.
Okay. Oh.
It's a FreeBSD, I think. That's what it's based on.
Right.
Well, if the stream cuts out, just so you know, I'm having a thunderstorm right now. If I suddenly go dark, you know what happened.
pfSense is a firewall.
So so why not EXTF4 or EXT4? I'm sorry.
HC2 doesn't have copy on write, doesn't have snapshots, doesn't have it does have pull shrinking, but not a reliable pull shrinking. It's just not good for data storage. Like if you're just doing a basic storage, it's fine. It's not good for a lot of data and a lot of transferring of data and a lot of duplication of data and stuff like that. So RAID it's fine if you're doing like 2, 3 drives maybe. It's fine. If you're doing any more than like 5, 6, it's just not. It's not going to handle that kind of load that well. Like it'll do it. It'll just be slower and it won't be as reliable. For example, ZFS has fantastic compression and file transferring structure. So like LZ2 cache, I think that's what it's called. LZ2. It's got a compression algorithm that's based on getting as small a file as possible on the fly and writing that to the drive, while at the same time being as performant as possible. So ZFS has the ability to compress your files while it's writing to the machine and decompress while you're trying to read it. And it's doing it in a point where it like saves like 60% of the file size. So it's very good for like a lot of data storage, and depending on what the content is. Like a video, it's not going to save that much. Database is going to save a ton. Document files is going to save a ton. Video is going to save like maybe 20%, but it's still better than like a basic compression. But the reason why it's great is because it's on the fly compression. You don't have to worry about the droppage of reliability for the data, because it's making a copy of the data before it starts doing the extraction. So the extraction dies. If the decompression dies or the compression fails at some point, it's not going to delete your data. It's going to still keep that copy while it's doing it. So it handles loss of data way better than most of them. It also has, but one of the ways it does this is because it doesn't have a pull shrink. And if you don't know what that means, it means having the amount of data used never goes down. Impossible to go down. So if you don't have a lot of drives, ZFS is not the best option. You don't have a lot of storage space anyway. It could be a few drives, but if you have like 10 terabytes or something in a few drives, that should be fine. But it's just like if you never use the certain data, it's already allocated and never could be unallocated. So that's one of the reasons why ZFS is maybe not the best for everybody.
Well, it
So
sounds like
what was the other one besides ZFS? What's the other one?
XFS.
XFS, it's the one.
XFS is good. It doesn't have copy on write, but it does have snapshotting and it does have pull shrinking. So it could be good depending on your structure. So like they're all very different. Like, you know, depending on your load of data is the main issue.
So it sounds like to me it would probably be better for me, not being familiar with all that stuff, to get a plug and play if I was going to go that direction.
Yeah. If you're not wanting to learn how to deal with it, the easiest solution is to get a plug and play. And to be fair, the first time I did one was a plug and play, but that was a long time ago. So I don't know how well they are now.
I have a. It's probably a dumb question, maybe, I don't know, because again, I've looked into a NAS, but I haven't taken enough time to really learn the hard details because a lot of what you're talking about I've looked at, but I still haven't. I'm a true novice, let's put it that way, when it comes to that. Before I even started considering something like that, I thought, well, okay, I'm not doing video rendering like Rocco's doing or you guys are doing, and I'm just looking for some remote backups. I thought, do I just throw a separate machine downstairs and just create a little separate, backup server that way and throw my remote backup, so to speak? Or do you look at now? Western Digital has that MyCloud out where the recommendation is, you could access your files, but then you could daisy chain a backup on there, which to me, I thought that would be more cumbersome than having a remote machine that I just built myself and threw downstairs somewhere or wherever, but I'm talking about novice level. I'm talking about somebody that doesn't have a lot of stuff that's just looking to make multiple backups. You know what I mean?
Okay, so there's multiple approaches for this. I would not use a cloud service because that means they have your data. Like, just straight up, they have your data. Whether they encrypt it or not is up to the software, and they might say they encrypt it and not even encrypt it. Or they do what Dropbox does, which is atrocious, and says, yeah, it's encrypted from your computer to ours. Yet we have a super key that can decrypt literally everything on our servers, so no, it's not encrypted.
So Western Digital MyCloud device is still through Western Digital, you're saying? Is that what you're saying, Michael?
Well, the MyCloud implies that it's going through the network, right? They have
right. It's still internet.
Just...
In other words, the claim is you could be in China and access your files at home, but you do it over your internet. But if you don't have an internet connection, you can't get to it. That's in theory how it works, and what my understanding was.
Well, they have to open a port on your firewall then, or your router.
Right.
So I don't know. I'd have to look into it more. But if it allows you to have a basic cloud that you actually run, and it's your own cloud, and like that might work. That might be fine. If it's stored on your stuff and not ever put to their servers, that wouldn't.
No, it's actually how they've got the external hard drive enclosures, right? That you can back stuff up to. The MyCloud looks like basically the same device. Same type of principle, but the difference, what I'm understanding of it is, basically you can connect from your internet anywhere you're at, as long as you have an internet connection. But again, you still should, add a backup to that separately, so that if that you don't have the internet connection or something happens to that, you still have a separate backup on top of that. You can daisy chain it with this, but the device itself is theoretically an enclosed, maybe 2 drive or 4, and they have, I think, multiple drive possibilities with this. And the idea is, again, accessing it on your internet, provider or network, logging into it or whatever. I'm not exactly sure how exactly it works, but I do know that it's supposed to be able to be something in theory that you're housing, within your facility or wherever, and you log into it from however you set it up. It's not on yours.
It sounds interesting. I have to look up to be fair, because I don't know for a fact like how they structure it, so I can't really make an opinion on that. But if it is locally only, and in the sense of like the way to get access to it, you have to set that up for you, that's fine. I still wouldn't want it to be if it's like a plug and play option for like local your own LAN cloud, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But if it allows you to go online, don't do that, because then you're poking a hole in your router, and that's not worth it.
Yeah.
You could be like, well, I'm going and traveling, and I'm going to watch some movies. Like, just put that on a flash drive and be done. Like, don't worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so there's an issue of the convenience versus the security of this data. I would say all of the cloud backup stuff is not worth doing. Never do that. Locally backup is good. If this MyCloud thing is an easy plug and play backup solution, that would be fantastic. Like that, that makes me even go, well, I could give this to my parents and they wouldn't have to worry about anything.
Right.
But if that's, I'm not going to put my hopes into it, because that usually doesn't work out that well.
Well, the other thing too is I don't know if they even have support for Linux systems either. For somebody, it would either be just, either Windows or Mac, I think.
I would think it's Mac and Windows, I would have to think.
If they require their own software to run, then it's more than likely not Linux related. Yeah. But there's another option, and I like this option, but it's there are two options here I can give you. They're both kind of involved, but one is easier than the other one. The hardest one would be just to make copies of the files themselves directly, and make copies in different drives, put those drives in different places and stuff like that. If you possibly could, move the drive somewhere. But that's like for potential fire damage and stuff.
Right.
But there's another one. There's a service called CrashPlan, and they're kind of like Carbonite. You ever heard of those?
Yep.
Okay, CrashPlan is like Carbonite, except that it actually supports Linux, unlike Carbonite. But what's cool about CrashPlan is that they have this feature that's free, and they have a premium cloud option, but they have a free non-cloud local networks or FTP sharing. So you can transactionally make backups on your own drives using CrashPlan. So that's pretty cool. The only thing I don't like about that is that they do their backup files on their own format, which if CrashPlan ever dies or stops being maintained, that could be a problem. But it's been around for a while, and I've tested it with a few people, and it seems fine.
So it's not a file for file backup. You can go in and look at these files. It's a different format where you can't view the files at all.
You can view them. You can view the metadata of the files, but you can't directly get them. You have to pull them out of the pool. Right. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not that's how the transactional stuff is done more effectively, because it's just taking the bits that are not already there. But
I don't mind manually backing up. The problem I find is you just lose track of what's been updated with different files if you're working on different files, and whether you've actually copied them over and that sort of thing. They're the hardest things to keep track of when you're doing manual backups. And whereas if you had a program that could actually pick that, yes, that hasn't been updated, and pull it across, they're probably the best ones. I know there's a couple around. I don't know how well they work.
Well, the question I would have for CrashPlan is not so much that it backs up to different file formats, but how does it restore it? Does it have okay, so it has its own restore option, basically.
Yeah, it has individual file restore, and it has full backup restore.
I might give that a try, actually.
I mean, I haven't tested in a very long time, but I've tested it before, and it seemed to be pretty well that structure. And I have had friends and clients when I used to do tech support who have used CrashPlan, and a couple still do because some of them like get new computers and they'll never put it back on. But they keep their data, but they never get it back. They never get the software back on. So who knows? But it's a cool feature that they do for free. I like the idea that it's free. So if you're providing the storage space, you can use their software for free, and I really like that idea.
It says free backup to other computers and external drives for free, and then they have an individual plan for $5 a month to back up to their cloud, unlimited backup to their cloud.
Yeah, I've tested the unlimited thing. It's true. To be fair, because I like. And in the sense of, like I said, I tell people don't use backup on cloud backups because you can't really trust them. I'm not saying I trust CrashPlan either. I don't really know their infrastructure at all.
Right.
But I have tested their unlimited and put like 120 gigs or something within like a couple days. They didn't seem to have a problem with it. Whereas, Dropbox is like 20.
Right.
And, and also the files I put up there were like big for the purpose of testing.
Yeah.
But,
well, I have tested out pCloud and SpiderOak. SpiderOak supposedly encrypts your stuff. I don't know. But they're pretty expensive too, though.
SpiderOak is also pretty expensive, yeah. Their basic free plan is like pretty small. I think like 2 gigs or something.
Yeah, and if you want any higher than that, I think it's like $12 a month.
Yeah.
To pay for more storage.
It's not terrible, but it is kind of high end. But I don't know. I don't like the cloud structure like that. I used to use Dropbox a long time ago. Then I found out their security issue, and I immediately dropped everything. Like I took all this stuff out of their files, and they also deleted one of my files without my permission.
Nice.
They're like, hey, you lost. There was a file I had on my computer, and I never deleted it, obviously, and I hadn't used it in like 60 days, and I went back to find it, and it was not there. I was like, what? And Dropbox decided that because I hadn't used it in 60 days, I didn't need it anymore and deleted it.
Right. That's great.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was great. So I decided to tell Dropbox to kiss my butt and leave.
Yeah.
And yeah, but Shane asking about what my opinion is of OwnCloud, and I would say OwnCloud is something you should not use. You should use Nextcloud. And for certain pieces of Nextcloud, I'd say it's fantastic. In certain cases, I would say nah.
So why would you use Nextcloud over OwnCloud?
Well, OwnCloud is basically essentially dead. The founder of OwnCloud is now a part of Nextcloud. Like 60% of the developers of OwnCloud are now a part of Nextcloud, and the amount of the OwnCloud released their first release update for a year, and Nextcloud has released like 6 because all the development is moved. Not all of it, but a significant portion of development is moved from OwnCloud to Nextcloud. And you might be wondering, why would they do that? Well, the person who made OwnCloud is not a businessman, and he set up the business infrastructure of OwnCloud very badly and realized that he doesn't control the company anymore. So he decided to just abandon OwnCloud and make Nextcloud. So Nextcloud is a better option, mainly because they update quicker, they provide patches faster, they have new features all the time, and OwnCloud is only cares about the making money from the enterprise and doesn't care about the open source aspect of it, because that's where he screwed up. Essentially, he set up a structure where the board of directors could essentially replace anything that he did.
Nice.
Like that's kind of that's part of the problem. There's some other legal problems that he messed up on. Supposedly Nextcloud has done better, and he learned from his mistakes. I hope that's true. But I still wouldn't use either one for file backup because they don't have a good reputation of having file backup solid. They have a good
backup plan of their cloud infrastructure for calendar and contacts and all that good stuff, like all the basics of personal documents and stuff. It's fantastic. But if you're doing like a full backup thing, maybe not. Like, not really the best for file management. I've had people tell me the great stories that they'd never had crashes, and I've also had people tell me that they lost gigabytes of content.
Right.
So, I don't know.
All right, gentlemen.
Anyway.
I think that will be it for this stream.
Sounds good.
And thank you all for joining, and we'll see you hopefully back here next Friday night.
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
No worries.
All
See you
right,
later,
gents.
guys.
Ever replace?
Good night, everyone.
Yes.
What's that?
I'm reading the chat room. Sorry.
Oh.
Someone asked if Wayland will ever replace X, and it's like, yes, eventually. But how would that be? 5 years or 10 years? No idea. Probably 10.
Probably not for 10 or 12 years, but
yeah, it'll eventually happen because it's everyone is trying to make that happen.
yeah.
But whether it will be quickly, no, it won't be quick. I don't think
No,
so.
it won't be quickly. No, it'll be as quick as your videos.
Okay.
Okay. Bang. Here we go.
Now, those are some fighting words. And what I'm going to have to say to that is fair enough.
Yeah.
That's insulting. Are you implying that I haven't made a video in like a month or something?
I told you, dude. I didn't realize it, but I didn't make a video since June.
Really?
That's why I had to put out the Ubuntu Mate video, because I mean it's been since the late June since I made a video. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's what you spend your nights here on Friday.
That's what. Well, I spend it on Destination Linux and getting that ready, and I spend it on
Well, to be
here.
fair, isn't this on your channel? Isn't this stream on
It
your channel?
is, but it's not like it's not the normal content that's on the channel.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then if you don't care about that, I'll just download yours and upload mine. It's like I'm on here. It's fun.
There you go. Do it.
That's cool.
Job done.
That was a big shot across the bow. I'll tell you that.
Sorry, man.
No,
It was there. I had to take it.
Yeah.
and to be fair, it's totally true. I don't really have a problem with you doing it, mainly because I've done it myself and made fun of myself about how long I've taken to do things, and I have a weekly show that I haven't released in a month. So where's
that?
So
All right.
it's fair. I can't really argue against it. It's a jab, but
Well, I'll tell you
it's
what,
on point. It's right on the nose.
In the tech world, when I sit down and start doing a video in Kdenlive or something, it feels like it's 10 minutes and like 3 or 4 hours gone by, and you think, where's the time gone?
Right.
Yeah, you can totally. I mean, I've spent 8 hours on a video that lasted 20 minutes before.
Yeah, it just goes so quick. It's
People
just
were like
amazing.
watching, and it's like, yeah, you did. This is really good production. I was like, it better be. It took me 8 hours to do it.
All right. I'm out. I'll catch you guys all next week.
See you, Joe. See you, Michael.
Bye, everybody.
See you, Rocco.
See ya.
Bye-bye.